recording the session so that you will be able to go back and watch this later. So last night I did post the recordings. One of the things that I really love, and I think I've mentioned this once, but whenever you see 3 dots somewhere, click on them. Nothing bad's going to happen, and you're going to see lots of options. And so when we're in our classwork, we have the capability to, we see all these 3 dots. If I click on the 3 dots, I can copy a link. And so I can copy a link to a published assignment. I can also copy a link to a topic. And so if I want to direct somebody's attention to something, I can very easily copy that link. And that is what I did over here is I just said, hey, the recordings for both sessions have been posted on the classwork page under the recordings topic, which is linked below. And so you guys could have gone to classwork, or you could have just clicked here and it would have taken you to classwork. So just so you know that that is an option as you are communicating with your students, you can grab a link to not only an assignment, but a topic. You can also grab a link to an announcement. To see any of these links, you do have to be logged into Google Classroom. To access them. And so like if you post it on a web page or post it on Facebook or post it somewhere else, only people who are in this class would be able to access it. And so just so you know, if you work collaboratively with that, that would be something to think about. And then I did also ask for quick feedback on yesterday and if any questions. There's a couple comments about wishing that we had more time to use Flipgrid. And I do believe that is this afternoon. We will dive into Flipgrid a little bit more, and we'll also dive into Jamboard a little bit more. Yep, so we'll have a little bit of time for you to explore those 2 resources some more. So
I have a quick question about the links that you mentioned.
Yep.
I know that when I'm using other products from Google Suite, so Forms or whatever, I can change the link to who can access it. Is that capability? Okay, thank you.
Nope. The thing with Google Classroom is it's a container, and the only people who have access to that container are the people who are in it. And so when you guys have joined with this join code, you are part of my classroom. So I could send a link out to the whole building, and only people who are in the classroom can access that. If you click on it, and you'll find this when you when you start looking for like Google Classroom examples, or people will say, here's a link to my unit. What'll happen is you'll click on the link, it'll take you to your classroom, but all you'll see is the classes that you're in and the classes that you are that you teach. So if you go ahead and practice, you can go ahead and click on that link on the stream, and it'll just take you right over to that topic that I've shared the link to. So very nice. So no link sharing capabilities there. The other thing that I just want to make sure, I know a lot of people have used Google Drive and the sharing functionality to say, okay, share your document back to me. If you use Google Classroom, everything is going to be within this Google Classroom and within the Google Drive folder for this classroom. So you will not have like loose content floating around your drive. It will all be contained. And so that is something else. If students say, well, I shared that with you, this is not a punitive moment, but it's oh, did you turn it into the classroom? Here, let's look at how we do that again. And so that, how do we turn in an assignment? And so do make sure that you're utilizing that Google Classroom container because it'll make your life so much easier. And also once your students, and they'll pick it up really quickly. Once your students get in the routine of Google Classroom is where I get my assignments, Google Classroom is where I turn in my assignments, you won't even notice. One of my good friends and former coworkers taught English up in Eagle Butte, and she started out using Google Classroom 8th grade English with her 8th grade English peeps, or not Google, she used Google Drive. And so her kids knew how to share, and they had folders, and life was good. And okay. Well, then she started using Google Classroom with them. At the end of the year, she does her exit ticket with them and says, what thing are you most excited about? Whatever. And they were like, we loved using Google Classroom. We hope we can use it in the high school. And so she's like, well, remember when we were using Google Drive? And they're like, no, what? I mean, and so even in the course of a year, they were pros at Google Drive, and then they switched over to Google Classroom, and it was just so much easier. So just container. Think of it as your container. All right. So I'm going to jump right in to, so there was questions right away on this morning about Zoom and Google Meet. And so I've pulled in a number of resources for you that talk about both of them. Yes, Lori, thank you. Never have them share with you. Never. Everything has to go through Google Classroom. Thank you for dropping that in the chat. Oh, so I've dropped in 2 different collections of resources for both using Zoom and also using Google Meet. I do need to add a little bit of information about the access. So right now, Google Meet, everybody can record in Google Meet after September 30th, unless you purchase the add-on. And so that's something that your district would have to decide. You would not be able to record. Zoom, right now, teachers have an unlimited meeting time for free from Zoom. After, I believe it's September 30th, also, you will no longer have that unlimited meeting time. And so if you do one-to-one, you can talk forever. But if you do 1 to more than 1, so 1 to 2 on up, you only have 40 minutes. And so just, really, you can always rejoin a Zoom meeting. If you need to record your Zoom meetings, that has always been a functionality. And I record Zoom meetings to my computer all the time for trainings, but then I also just record like screencasts so that I can share. So both very similar. The other thing in the Google Meet resources, I did share some of the upcoming things that are happening, and there's a lot of stuff that's coming out, but isn't here yet. And so like right now in Zoom, you have all this functionality. So it's going to be one of those things where you're going to just need to, I would test them out, play with them, and then make a decision on which one is going to work best for your situation. Because they're both very similar, and they're both good.
Julie, you said no recording right now on Google Meet, but you could still record your screen using Screencastify or one of those, right?
Yeah, if you wanted to integrate in another thing, you could. I'm not sure how sound would work though, just because like when we do Zoom, and if I were to share a video, I have to share my sound with you. I can't just play it on my computer. Even though I hear it, it doesn't mean that you hear it.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so Google Forms. Let's use your participants tab real fast and tell me yes, no, who's used Google Forms? So click on your people icon at the bottom of your screen, and then, ooh, it's like 50-50 so far. Yes, if you've used Google Forms. No, if you haven't. Google Forms are winning. Yeses, the yeses are winning right now, you guys. Okay, so the yeses win. We got 15 to 11. So yay. What do you guys do with Google Forms? You can unmute or you can just chat me. What are you doing with them?
I personally used it for the course this summer.
Oh, you're good. So this is the 15 people who've taken the course. Kelsey, quizzes, surveys, homework assignments. Nice. So you're using it for the whole gamut. Rex, you're using it for surveys. Gary says quizzes, interactive activities. Yes, drag and drop projects. Rochelle says community surveys. Nice. So you guys are using it a lot of different, those of you that are using it a lot of different ways, which I really, I love that. Student information, yes. That is such a good thing to do, Ben, is to get that student information. Quizzes, labs, miscellaneous forms, web page like activities. What do you mean by that, Sister Patrice? Brian says quizzes. What do you mean by web page like activities? Students can access the rest of the web. Links. Oh, okay. Okay. So like you give them links and they can, so you share it out as like links then. Okay, cool. Okay, awesome. So Google Forms gives you so much. Notes on the readings, yes. So Google Forms gives you so many different options that you can do to gather information about your students. They give you the ability to do the quizzes. They also give you the ability to not only get information from your students, but from your community. You can just do so much stuff with it. So let's go ahead and click on assignment 004, which is the quizzes and forms assignment. Oh, nice. Lori says she uses them to sign classroom expectations to acknowledge that they've read them. I love that. And you know, and that is one of those kind of like streamlined things that you can do because you know, this is something that you can make a form and you can make that assignment and post it out to all of your classes. And so it's not like you have to do duplicate things. That's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to edit this assignment so that we can see what we're doing. So within, we're going to go to 004, go to your classwork, and then click on assignment 004, quizzes and forms. So go to view assignment, quizzes and forms, and then there's a document attachment there that's going to give you everything that you need to follow along with this activity. The assignment for this activity is you will create a form or a quiz. And then you're going to share the link in the class comments so your colleagues can fill it out. And then you will all also note what purpose the quiz or form is when you share that so that your colleagues can fill it out so that if you haven't used forms before, you'll get to see the data. And if you're trying something new, you'll also get to see the data. So that's pretty exciting. And then when you're all done with this assignment, you just have to click mark is done. So let me click on the file. Okay. So you'll notice that with forms and quizzes, you can gather information, create assignments, and take over the world. So your options are unlimited with these. How do you find Google Forms? Just like we find everything else, we can go to the waffle. So when we're in a Chrome browser, when we're in our Chrome browser, you can click on the waffle and go to Forms. And mine is way down there, but yours may be closer to the top. Or we can go to Google Drive and then do a new. And this is where Forms is under More. So we have to do New and then mouse over More, and then we have Google Forms. And so that's how we create a blank Google form. Very, two different options. I usually use my Google Drive. I do not tend to use my Waffle very much and go to Forms. My phone keeps telling me that I've said something Google. The other thing, when you make a new form, you'll see you can do a blank form or from a template. And so when I click on Google Forms, we'll actually, I want to show you the templates. So if you go to New, More, Forms, from a template, you're going to see templates that your building has provided, and then also different templates that you can use. And so this is a huge time saver if you are looking at, if you just want to make an exit ticket. Look, there's an exit ticket. I can make that. I can edit it as I need to, and I'm done. I don't need to recreate the wheel. And so you, from the education standpoint, you have a few forms that you can take and use. And I do use these often just because it's a quick way to pull together an exit ticket. Then there's also other forms that you can use. And so if you can scroll down and see the templates that are available. So that's how we go in and open a form and create it. You do have the screenshots here. And now I'm going to keep on kind of rolling through some of the additional resources. So your first, if you need more, there's a really great First Day with Google Forms, which has videos and tutorials. And then the Stitch That Textbook blog post has just an amazing list. And so you guys have an amazing list of ways that you've used Google Forms. But if we can get this to open up, you'll see that he has 25 practical ways to use Google Forms. And many of them are, I mean, some of them are gathering, information, all the things that you guys have already suggested. But as we go on through, you'll see he talks about procedural stuff. He goes through and talks about assessment, ways to use it with us for assessment, learning and creating. And then, and so he gives you, I mean, like some of my favorites are like digital escape rooms. You can do really cool digital escape rooms, and he gives you, templates for that. So just lots of really cool things you can do. So I'm going to give you just about 5 minutes to open up this 25 practical ways to use Google Forms and check those out so that you can see what your options are.
I'm getting site can't be reached.
Oh dear, ditch that textbook. Are you
all the teachers in the United States are simultaneously
using his website? Probably. It's like a 50-50 thing, I think. All right, well, never mind. But I guess I really do want you to come back and look at this for inspiration as we go. I'll show you some of the ways that you can customize forms and do different things, but this, he gives you examples and everything, so it's a good resource. So we will not just take a couple minutes and look at those ideas. So using Google Quizzes in Google Classroom, I gave the Google support for that because they have good screenshots. One of the things that I want to note for you guys is when we do, oh, Tim, you got in. Everybody go to Tim's room. All right. So maybe you try again because Jana got in also. So, all right, go ahead and try again. I do want you to get some inspiration. Do you need to sign in? Nope. If it does pop up with like it may pop up with a splash page that you can just ignore. You can close that. You don't have to sign in. I think he wants you to sign up to get emails when he puts out new information. All right, Brian, let's see. So when we click on the document, right here is the link. I'll be one of those people that's stressing it out because I now have it open twice. Okay. I think because I'm in this one, it didn't pop up again, but you should be, try going out and coming back in again, Brian. Sure, we can look at your screen real quick. Hold on. Just need to let you share. All right, go ahead and share your screen, Brian. Okay, Whitney, so what you can do is, can you copy the link out of the chat? Brian, go ahead and click on the green. Okay, so let's go through and kind of look at the steps of, let's look at some of the nuances of creating a form. And so I'm going to run through some of those features, and then you guys will have a chance to create your own form. One of the things that I wanted to point out is when we are in Google Classroom and we say create a quiz assignment, it's going to automatically attach a blank form. You don't have to use their blank form. You can delete it and add your own. And so I want to make sure you know that, so that everything we're doing right now, you can attach that. So let's go in and look at our blank form. So I'm going to run through across the top of the page the settings on a blank form. And so we have our title, and so I'm going to call this test form or test quiz, because I'll make it a quiz for you guys. Notice that when I typed it in the title up here, it automatically filled in. And so that's kind of nice. So there's my test. Now, as I scroll across the top, this is where I see I can customize my theme. So I can import a header image if I want. I can choose my color, my background color, and I can also choose font style. So that's your theme. This preview, this is huge, you guys. Hey Brian, yes, you can always send me questions. This preview will let you run through a form and see if it's working like you want it to. It'll also allow you to see what it looks like. And so I tend to use the preview quite a bit. You also have the settings, which we are going to look at in detail, so we'll come back to those. Then you have send, and send is how we share a form. So this makes me always, I'm like, wait, I don't want to mail it to anybody, but you click on send to get the link. You click on send if you do want to email it to somebody. You also click on send if you want to get the embed code to like embed it to your website, or if you want to share the form via Facebook or Twitter. So those are all things that you do with the send. So now I'm going to run back over to the settings gear. And when we're in the settings gear, you have three different options. You have your general settings, your presentation, and your quizzes. And so we're going to look at each one of those tabs independently. In the general, there's an option to collect email addresses. When I'm using this with, so like if you guys filled out the "How did yesterday go" response, that was an anonymous form. And so I did not collect email addresses because I didn't, I just wanted some feedback. When you're working with students and you're using quizzes or you want to know who fills it out, collecting email addresses is a good practice because then you'll know, you'll at least have their email address. The other thing that I generally do is I generally do ask for a first name and a last name just because it makes it a little easier to know who's submitted your form. So I'm going to click on collect email addresses, and then you get the option for response receipts. And response receipts means that an email will be sent to the person who fills out the form with all of their responses. And so I use that sometimes. It depends on what I'm doing with it. I use it if you're signing up for something, I generally use it so that you have that response. If I was going to do a quiz, I wouldn't use it, if that makes sense, because I don't necessarily want you to see all the questions. And so you can choose response receipts or not. Requires sign in. So if we've required sign in, this you can restrict it to just users in TO Spazina. If you do that, it means that only your students or people in your district will be able to fill this out, and that's fine for your students. However, if you're going to send this out to community or anybody who doesn't have a TZ account, then you'll want to uncheck this. And so just pay attention to this. This is one of those, depending on what you're doing, you'll want to look at that. We can also limit to one response. And so if you only want people to respond once, you can do that. And then what you show respondents following the submission. And so can they edit, or can they see a summary, chart, and text responses? And this is, just totally optional. So now I'm going to jump over to presentation. You can show the progress bar. And so that's great, especially if you have a lot of screens or, so students can see exactly where they're at. You can also shuffle question order. If you shuffle question order, that can mess up if you're doing, if you're trying to do some logic. And so I don't tend to use shuffle question order, but you can if you're just doing a straight quiz. And then finally, show a link to submit another response. This is totally, it just depends on what you're doing with it. Sometimes I use this, sometimes I don't. And then finally, that confirmation message. This is a thanks for filling out the form, or you'll get an email or whatever, or contact me so you can add a confirmation message. Finally, here's how you make a quiz. So the quiz function, you can turn it on, and this allows you to assign point values and allow auto grading. You do have an option for a locked mode on Chromebooks. And so what that means is students aren't allowed to open tabs or other applications while they're taking the quiz. But the Chromebook must be a managed Chromebook. And so if you do have managed Chromebooks, you can definitely use the locked mode. Do know though that, if students are at home, they're probably going to have access to their phone, they're going to have access to who knows what. And so locked mode may be not as effective as you would hope. So you can release the grade on a quiz immediately after a submission or later after manual review. If you do later after manual review, notice it's going to turn on email collection. And then finally, it gives us respondents can see. And so here, they can see the point values for the quizzes, they can see correct answers, they can also see missed. And so I can make it so that they don't know anything, or I can use this as a learning opportunity and I can give them you know, just a quick formative, I can give them all of this information, and they can see what they missed, and you can provide them with, you know, watch this video, or here's some additional work that you can do to understand this. So I'm going to leave this a quiz. If you are gathering, and so like when I'm looking at your options of things that you've done, escape rooms, daily check-ins, opinion surveys, writing your own adventures, all of those are not going to be quiz format. Those are just going to be Google Forms. When you're doing sign-in sheets, those two are not a quiz format. So the quiz format is really going to be anything where you're going to have a right or wrong question and you want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and save this as a quiz so we can see what it looks like as a quiz. Remember, I've asked it to do email address. And then it comes up default with our untitled question. So this is where we're going to look at some of our options. On the right-hand side, there's a floating toolbar that will move down the page as we go. And so if we click over that, we can add a question. Love this. This is one of the newer things. You can import questions from prior forms. And so this is something that I do not so much here because I don't really have any data in your Google Drive, but I generally have numerous forms. And this way I can go in, I can click on a form, select it, and then over on the right, it's going to ask me what questions I want to import. And so I do this often because it lets you reuse questions and reuse stuff really easily if you want to build another quiz or another form. The text, add title and description. This allows you to add a section title and description. It allows you to put in a lot of content here. So this is great if you want them to read a passage or read something, you can do that. Below that, we have add an image. Here, I can upload something from my computer. And so like, remember yesterday? No, probably not. I don't think I did this with you guys yesterday. I have a PNG of a worksheet. And so I just brought in a image of a worksheet. And so this is one of the things that I can do. I can say, you know, here's the worksheet. So you can't edit it, but we can see it. For little kids, I can go in and I can add images of, you know, say I want to add images. I'm going to do a Google image search. And I'm going to look for Apple clip art. So here I can pick this image, drop it in, and now I could ask a whole bunch of questions about the apples. I could say, how many, which one doesn't belong? You know, I mean, you could do all sorts of different questions with that. And so I can bring in lots of anything that's an image, I can bring it in and then ask subsequent questions about it. And so that's what you can do with the images. You can also add a video. And so remember, with one of the things that we often try to do is how do we make sure that the students have watched a video? A Google form is a really great way to do that. And so if you want to embed a video so that we can see it like this in a Google form, you have to use YouTube. Because I can show you how you can add a link. You could also just add a link. And so if you have a video in Google Drive, if you have a video somewhere else, you could embed the link. So I'll show you how to do that in a second. But your video is in YouTube, and now I can say, you know, they have to answer, you know, what is the main point? And I'm going to make it be, that's going to be a paragraph. I'm going to make it a required question, meaning the student cannot turn this video in or turn this quiz in until they answer this question. And then you're going to see, and I tend to think when I'm making a quiz, I tend to think of my questions and answers as like a recipe card. And so, or a flashcard. And so one side is my question, and then you'll see you have the answer key. And when I click on that, that's going to show me my answer options. And so this was a paragraph, so I can give it points. And so I can say this was 10 points. I can do answer feedback. And so I'm like, you know, great ideas. I can add a link. I can add a video. This has to be YouTube also. So just so you know, I can save. Okay. So now when I say done, I have my answer key has been filled in for this paragraph, and I can also come back and see my question. So as you're looking at this type of thing, know when we do the quizzes, you have two sides. You have the question side, and then you have the answer side. Okay. So as we're looking at this now, students would have to watch this video, and so I could ask a series of questions. I could ask let me add another question here. I could ask multiple choice questions. You know, what product does the video talk about? And so I could say Google Classroom. Microsoft Teams. And so now I've got a multiple choice question. I'm going to make this required also. Here we have the answer key. I need to choose the correct answer. And so I know she talks about Microsoft or Google Classroom in this one. I could have multiple correct answers if I wanted. Give it my points, give it my feedback. Notice now I have, if it's an incorrect answer, I can give feedback. I can also give feedback for a correct answer. So I'm going to say done. So now I have two different kinds of questions after this video, and they are both required. So I can't submit this resource until I've done that. Other things we can do is we can add in sections. And so the very bottom one is add a section. And so when I add a section, if I add a section, so I'm going to go through and call this a test or you know, creating a test. And so we're going to do that. I'm going to now add a question under this. So when I'm doing a question, you're going to see I have the ability to add in an image. Whenever I have this, I can add in an image. So we just had a question about using the snipping tool. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go to a PDF that I have. I'm going to use my snipping tool. So snipping tool. Clicking on new, and I'm going to take questions 1 and 2 here. So now I do need to save that. Now I can come back over, I can upload this from my computer. And you'll see that I have my question here, or my image that I just dropped in. And then I can, right now I have it as a multiple choice. And so I could put in answers there. I could have it be short answer. I could have it be paragraph. I could also say I wanted it to be a file upload. And so I do have options for that.
Can you interrupt?
Yep, please do.
this is great, but can I say use the snipping tool for the 4 options, say multiple choice? Can I put down
Yep.
for mathematics? It's difficult because of the language isn't written in it, so you can't use it.
Mhm.
So you can do that, right?
So, yep. So if I have answers, and you know, I don't have the answer key. Do you think a student could find me the answer key to this? I'm kidding. Smile. Um, so if I had the answer key, and so let me just do a real quick. When I'm here, when I've got the options, notice I have the image here also, so I can bring in an image. So I'm going to do a quick Google image search. So I'm going to say geometry. I cannot spell today, obviously. All right, so we're going to pretend that this is an answer, okay? And I know it's not, but I mean, just for trying to show examples. So here now is option 1. So they could pick this, and I could add multiple other options. I could add in other images too. And so if I have the answers, I can do that. So I could snip, so I could take snips out of my answer key and put in those answers. There's a few other resources that I will give you for teaching math in Google Classroom.
Okay, I was thinking that you could also just, instead of making it a quiz, you could just use this as a worksheet.
You could, yep, you could
Yeah.
definitely just use it as a worksheet. So so I'll add the answer key here. I'm going to say that this is the correct answer, and we'll just say it's done. I'm not going to answer any feedback. Okay, and I'm going to make this quiz this one required too. And so Rochelle, you mentioned you should have a print at each district center so students can print, because some worksheets are done with a better done with a pencil. You know, and that is a good suggestion. The other thing that you can do is students can insert, students can take pictures. And so even if they haven't printed the worksheet, you know, they can do the work and take a picture of the work from paper. One of the schools I work with a lot actually uses whiteboards. And they use an LMS, they use whiteboards, and put the students do the work on a whiteboard, take a picture of that work, and then submit it into the LMS. And so take a picture and attach it as an assignment into like Google Classroom or whatever they're using. And so that's another option. So that students have that ability to do that writing, and it's not on the computer all the time. Okay. So this is, so I've added a section. One of the really nice things with a section here is I can now start adding in logic if I want to. And so these are not related whatsoever, but 3 dots, remember we're clicking on 3 dots. I can say go to a section based on the answer. And so if you pick Google Classroom, you're going to go down and take some math test. If you pick Microsoft Teams, you're going to submit the form. You know, I mean, and so I give you different options depending on how you answer the question. And so that can be part of, and this does not have to be part of a quiz. This can be something that you do. So this would be how you would make your choose your own adventure books, is if I said Google Classroom, I go here. If I say Microsoft Teams, I go here. And so it gives you a lot of different options there. And so I say continue to next section, or I can say like go to section 2, creating a test. And so now when I go through and follow through with this form, it's going to give me logic in there. All right, so I'm going to show, so we've done a number of different things with this form. So I'm going to do the preview. so that we can see what it looks like. So I have to put in an email address. I didn't put a title on this text, so that's fine. Here's my worksheet, which is just a picture. Here's my apples, which are just a picture. Here's my video. It's the main point, Google Classroom. And so this is where, depending on what I pick, I will do different things. If I say Google Classroom here, I will go on to this creating a test. And so here I can pick option 1 or option 2, which is blank. If I go back and pick Microsoft Teams, click submit to finish. I'm done. So this is one of the things that you'll notice. And so when I said that I could view my score, I have 0 out of 20 points, but it also tells me that my final score is pending. And that's because, pop back over here, now in my form, and I can see my responses. I can see the responses to each question. And this is how I can bulk grade. And so once all the students have submitted their form, I can bulk grade this. At the question level. I can also go in and look at an individual. And so you're going to notice here that this is where I can release the score. So when I'm looking at my questions, and so what's the main point of this video? This is the ungraded response because it was a paragraph, so there is no, there's no fill in the blank or anything there. And I'm going to say, yeah, this is good. So I can click on the mark is correct and give them 10 points. So now at the bottom, it pops up that I can save my edits and we're good to go. So I can go back at my individual level. I can release my score. I can do it to all respondents or just to me. And so in this situation, there is only me. And then I can send emails and release. And so now I've released this score. Yes, I can actually. I can give 5 points. So if you have a question, there's a number of you guys in the same room, and so we're getting a lot of feedback. But if you want to disconnect the audio from other people in the room, you can ask a question. So yes, I can give partial points. And so let me go back to my question. And here I can say I'm going to give 5 points for that. Now I can say save. When I go back to my individual, I would need to, you'll see here it tells me that updates were made after the release, so I can release the score again. So yes, you have that control in terms of how you want to give the points. So that is kind of a quick, summary of ways that you can do this with Google Forms. Being able to bring in images at multiple levels is really powerful, because now I can, even here, I could bring in an image and have the text, and I can say, and so when you think about, like, for all of our learners, having those images can be really a powerful visual.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do next is you guys get a few minutes to play around with Google Forms and create a form. Do you have a question? Okay. So what we'll do now is I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that you can go through and create a form. Awesome. Yay, Brian. Good. I'm glad. Well, and these are all good things because we're all going to lose things. And so, you know, make sure you help each other when you lose things in your Google Drive. Okay. So I'm going to pop back over to classwork. I'm not going to pick on anybody in particular, but I am going to just do some comments in general. One of the things I noticed is probably the instructor. I'm going to go to just Google Forms here. If you have a non-negotiable question, you're going to want to make sure it's required. And so like when I do forms, a lot of times I will say, you know, you have to answer this question, you have to answer this question, and then I'll say any other questions or comments, and I'll make that non-required because I don't want to force people to have to do that. But if you have non-negotiables, make them required because otherwise you can just skip over them. The other thing I wanted to note is you can, I did see a couple people that had dropped links in, which is great. So you can drop a link into a YouTube. But if you are using a YouTube, you can actually embed the YouTube in by adding a video. And it'll add it in its own little section type thing. So that can just be, and that's just semantics. And then the last thing is more logistics. So let me add in a couple quick questions here. When I'm asking for name, I don't know where my question went. When I'm asking for somebody's name, I generally ask for first name, last name, and separate questions because then when it comes out as a Google form or when I turn it into a Google sheet, because hopefully you've all got some responses now. You can click on your responses and we can see our responses, but we can also create a spreadsheet, and that will create a spreadsheet of your Google form responses. And so now you have everything in a spreadsheet that you can come back and look at. You'll notice that I did not ask for a name on mine. I do typically ask for first name in one question and last name in another, because then I can come back and I can sort a lot easier. If I ask for somebody's name, a lot of times I might just get your first name, I might just get Julie, or I might get Julie E, and all of that just gets to be really, really chaotic. And so first name, last name, two separate questions makes your life a lot easier. And requiring questions that you want to have. But you guys made some super awesome forms. I'm just so excited to come in and look at them. So I will definitely try to come back and look at more of them because they're really fun. So when you've made your form, go ahead and click on the send. And then you can get the link. So it says send via link. You can copy this link. If you want it to be shorter, you can do that shorten URL, copy it, and then you can go back to our assignment, find the class comments, whoops, find the class comments, and then paste it into the class comments. Awesome. Okay, so that's Google Forms. I'm going to move us on now to Google Slides. So let's see. So checking in class comments, if you've posted your form there, we'll be able to see it. If you haven't shared your form there, then no, I can't see your form. So you'll want to share your form and then copy and paste the link into the class comments. All right. So the next thing we're going to look at is Google Slides and then also using PDFs in an online environment. So one of the things that, so this is 005 and 006. I'm going to start us in 005, but we're not going to actually do that assignment. We're going to spend more time on the PDFs because both of them are having you utilize Google Slides. So when we're in Google Slides, so I've gone to, and so this is one of the things that I can do for you right now since we're live teaching. I can copy the link to this assignment and I can drop it in the chat so that you can all, so here's assignment 005. I can drop it in the chat. And so now that'll give you a direct link to assignment 005. So that's 3 dots, copy link. You'll have to be logged into your Google Classroom to be able to access it. So here I'm going to look at Google Slides and what we have going on. You can find your Google Slides in either the Waffle or from your Drive new slides. You're going to see that you have resources here for getting started, the first day of Google Slides, and then Ditch That Textbook again gives us some amazing resources that we can use. And so I'm going to jump straight there because I want us to see what happens when we are looking at Google Slides and the templates and how we can use those. So hopefully his page will come up again. Probably asking for too much, aren't I? Oh, here it comes, yay. So Ditch That Textbook has put together so many resources for Google Slides. And the things you can do with Google Slides, you know, like he has everything from interactive, he has free Google Slides templates. And then he also has podcast episodes all about slides and video tutorials. And so if you need to know something, this is a really great repository of how to get to cool Google Slides stuff. So I'm going to click on this free Google Slides templates because I want to see here we have so many different things that you can do and you can get the templates. And so if you want to do a this or that game, if you want to do a would you rather, so lots of different, you know, ways that we can engage the kids, especially if we are going to be doing some virtual instruction. It'll be a great way for doing that. Interactive notebooks are amazing. And so for like the science teachers, just anybody, interactive notebooks are a great tool. I'm going to take us all the way down to 20 ways to ditch that textbook in K-12 because there's a lot of samples here. They're templates that we can just copy and paste or copy. So here are 10 different Google Slide decks that you can copy and use as your own. And so I'm going to grab, let's see. Which one do I want? I'm going to do this number sense card sort. So I'm grabbing number 12. And this is what's going to happen. I'm going to end up with a view only slide deck.
Excuse me.
Yep.
How can I get to where you're at?
Here you go. I'm just going to drop it in the chat and you can click on this slide deck, okay?
Okay. I know. I know.
All right. And so the other thing that you're going to notice is Yes, and Doc, you asked about can you convert PowerPoints to Google Slides, but Lori, yes, they don't always convert correctly. And Alice Keeler is another great resource for all things Google Suite. Yes, and they all refer to each other. So you'll notice that Casey Bell is one of the resources that I've shared with you, refers to Ditch That Textbook, who also refers to Alice Keeler, and so they do that. So I've shared the slide deck with you so you can all see this. And I know we're not all, I mean, this is not necessarily our grade level, but it's just this way you can go in and see what happens. So when we're faced with a template, it's view only. One of the things that you can do is you can make a copy of that and then it becomes yours and you can edit it and share it and use it in your Google Classroom. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say File, make a copy. And here I can either do the entire presentation or I can say selected slides. In this situation, I am going to say the entire presentation because I want the whole thing. When I copy a document, I can rename it. I can also organize it. And so one of the things that I do is I always try to have folders in my Google Drive that I can use with my to keep myself organized. And so like here I have some TZTS content. And so I'm going to put it there. I can also make a new folder should I want to. Shoot, I just lost it. I can make a new folder if I want to within this, but this is a great way to keep yourself organized. When you're making copies, file them right away and you'll keep it together a little more. And this is, this is just from life, okay? I just know my Google Drive was a mess and now it's better. So I'm going to say, okay, notice I can rename it. I didn't. So here we have a copy of this slide deck. This is an interactive slide deck. And now that I can edit it, I can actually go in and see how it works. And so let's see, 15, I can select this. Oh, that's a number. That looks like it's probably a shape. And so I can sort all of these things and use them as long as I can edit it. So when I'm doing this, if I was going to use this slide deck in an assignment, two things. One, you're going to notice that slide number 2 is the answers. So I may want to make separate versions. I may want to make a copy with the answers and then make a copy without the answers. And so students can't, when I share it out to students, they only get the student copy and not the answer copy. I could embed this in a Google form and I could say, do this PowerPoint. So go out and give them the first slide and then they can come back and they can, after they've answered a couple questions, and you can say, check your answers and here's the answers. So you can do a lot of different things with this. If I wanted to assign this to my students so that they can go through and do this activity, how would I do that? Does anybody want to unmute and talk about that? Nobody?
You hit the share button, which is in the upper right corner of the screen.
If I want to share this with my students through Google Classroom, I don't actually need to use the share button, which is awesome. So if I was going to send a link to my colleagues, I would want to share it and share it out. But for sharing it in Google Classroom, I would want to make an assignment. And so at this point, I can go back to my classroom and I can click assignment. Here we're going to do interactive slides. And this is one that for me, it's awesome because, so I'm gonna actually delete the answers so that nobody has the answers. I have this file, I've made a copy, it's mine. I'm gonna make an interactive slides example. I add it through my Google Classroom. And so this is part of that when, even though I know I have files in my Google Drive, when I want to add them to Google Classroom, I need to add them through Google Classroom. And so this is in my Google Drive. It's one of my recent files, and so I'm going to grab this. And then I'm also going to do this view only one because I want to show you what happens. So I've selected 2 files. Oh, look, you guys, I get this exclamation point. I can only attach files that I have permission to share. I will need to make a copy. And so if you do not own a file, you are not able to add it to Google Classroom and share it out. So I'm going to go ahead and X that out. Here, this is a prime example of, I would really want each of you to have your own copy of this slide deck so that you can edit it and turn it in as an assignment. And so I'm going to say, make a copy for each student. So in this situation, I'm making a copy for each student, and when I assign it, and I'm not going to give it to you guys in any topic, so it'll just show up at the top of your assignments. Everybody is going to get their own copy of this. And so this is how, when we find those templates or we create an amazing slideshow of our own, this is how we're able to add that in. And I'm really glad, like Patrice, you talked about using the share button. We really want to make sure that the share button is, I mean, if we're sharing with colleagues, that's great. But if you're going to use it in Google Classroom, we want to make sure we're using Google Classroom to attach our files. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Cool. Okay.
So you're basically flipping back and forth between Google Classroom and the slides function.
You are. I mean, and you can create in Google Classroom. I mean, so if I wanted, I could create a slides here. What I'm finding in most situations is we already have stuff somewhere, you know, whether we have PowerPoints that we want to convert, whether we have a Google form that we've already created and we've shared out just independently. We have stuff in our Google Drive. And so that we don't have to always create something from scratch. And so that's where that adding from your Google Drive is such a powerful feature. All right, so I did give you that interactive slides example. We're not going to go in and look at it right now, but that's an assignment where each of you has your own copy that you can go in and edit. So now I want to spend a little bit of time looking at assignment 6, which is your using PDFs in an online environment. So I will share the link to that assignment in the chat too. And so this actually covers a lot of different resources, okay? And so when I click on the 006 file, you are going to see some options. If you have iPads, you can edit a PDF directly in the Google mobile app. So I've dropped in the instructions for that so you have that information. The one we're going to really focus on right now is how to share a PDF using Google Slides. And what this entails is you make a blank slideshow, you resize the page, you get an image of your worksheet, and so this can be taking a screenshot on your computer, it can be taking a picture of the worksheet that's on your, on your desk. You get an image of the worksheet. And then we change the background of the slide to our image and add text boxes. So there's a couple of different videos and tutorials that guide you through this. So one of the things that I ask you to do in this assignment is to follow the steps to turn a PDF worksheet into a Google slide if that is something that you are really concerned about. Some people are like, they don't use a lot of PDFs, or they have resources in their curriculum or they don't need to worry about it. If you have a fill in the blank PDF already, that may be one of those tools that it may work in your Google Classroom and you can just assign it. I would test it. So we will go through this process real quick. So to do this, to create a PDF that you can edit, we're going to create the new Google Slides. So I'm going to go to Drive. I'm going to make a blank Slides. And then at this point, what I can do is I can close my themes because I'm not worried about that. I'm going to name it, so it's going to be a demo PDF slide. And I can delete the text that's here. And so I can just click on those boxes and I can delete those boxes. And so those are gone. I need to resize my slides so that they are page size. This is where Google Slides can be so powerful, because in Google Slides, not only can we resize the page, you also have the ability to bring in images and bring in videos, et cetera, and wherever you place them is where they stay. And so it's a lot more forgiving than using like a doc. So I'm going to click on Page Setup, and then I'm going to click on Custom. And at this point, I'm going to say I want it 8.5 by 11. So I've made it the same size as a piece of paper. Boom. So I've started my PDF. The next thing I'm going to do is I need to make it, find my PDF and make it an image. So I'm going to go to my downloads because I'm cool this way. I have a whole collection of geometry worksheets because there's nothing better than geometry, right? So we're going to grab a geometry worksheet. Interesting. And so this is something that I want to add in as a image. So I need to get it so I can see the image on my screen in its entirety. So I'm going to adjust the zoom. And I've found that about 50% works really well. Actually, I like vectors better. Those look like more fun. So I've adjusted it to get about 50% zoom. That's for my screen, but you'll just want to rezoom so that I can see my entire image is what it boils down to. The next thing I'm going to do is I want to capture not necessarily a screenshot, but I want to do either the snipping tool by going down in to my next to my Windows icon and click snip. And then I can use the snipping tool. Or I really love, and I just learned this, you guys, so everybody probably knows it but me. If you click on the Windows key plus the Shift key plus the S. You can do it brings up a little window at the top of your screen where I can get a full screen snip, I can get a window snip, I can get a free form, or I can do a rectangular. I really prefer the rectangular, and that's what's default. So in this situation, I'm just going to grab this whole worksheet. Boom. And what it does is it says it's saved my clipboard. And so I'm going to click on that, and it opens it up. So now I can save it, and I'm going to save it to my downloads as, let's see, this is chapter 9, vectors. So once I get good at this, and this is something that I'm going to do a whole bunch of, I would take a lot of screenshots and save them, and then I would make a lot of slides. But for this situation, I'm going to go through step by step. So now I've got my image. I'm going to go back to my Google Slides, and I'm going to right-click on my slide. I can change the background. By changing the background, it means that the student is not able to move the background around, and they're able to just edit what you give them. Excuse me. So I'm going to upload, and I can either click on Browse, or I can go to my downloads, and I can drag and drop my file in. And so love that if I can do that. Now I can say that this is done, and I have a worksheet here that I can now edit freely. So now I can add in my text boxes. And so like this situation, we're like writing the component form of each vector. I'm going to click on the text box. Here, I'm going to enter in the text. I'm going to say type here. The other thing I can do with it is I can lightly shade that. If I want to draw attention to where I want them to type, I can do that. I can also, once I've done my text box, select it, Control-C, copy it, and then Control-V, paste it, and then drag it next to question 2. So I can go through and do this. So depending on the age level of your learners, you may want to add the text boxes in to show them where to type, or you can tell them to add a text box to answer the question. So this now is a Google slide that people can go in and they can type the answers in to the slide. So I'm going to assign it in Google Classroom so you guys can see it. So what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to create an assignment, and this is the demo editable PDF. I'm going to add it from Google Drive. And this is another one of those assignments that really makes a lot more sense to use. Everybody gets a copy. And so I'll make a copy for each of you and send it out. And so now, oops, I want to change its, okay. All right, and so I see a comment. Let me get back to my chat real quick. And so Rochelle, if you have full Adobe, that is another way that you can do that. One of the things that a lot of the schools I work with, they do not have full Adobe. So if you do have full Adobe, you have a lot more options. One of the things that you will run into challenges with is like this type of worksheet with a lot of graphics in it does not translate well, even if I export it out. This type of worksheet doesn't convert well at all. When we look at the resources for this assignment, another thing that you can do is you can open a PDF in Google Docs. And so once we do that, you can, so here's a PDF, and I've clicked on, I've given it to you guys so you can test it yourself. You'll notice at the top of the page you have this Open with Google Docs option. When you do that, it makes it into a Google Docs. It turns it into an editable document. But what I see, what I get complaints about from teachers is the students do this, and then when they turn it in, the formatting is really weird. And so this example, the formatting doesn't come out too bad, but it isn't great. And so if you do the convert Open with Google Docs, it will convert it into an editable document, but the formatting will be kind of off. Jamboard is another option, and we played with that a little bit yesterday. And so you can, and we'll play with it a little bit more this afternoon. So we'll look at that. There's the Kami Chrome extension, which you can utilize, and that allows you to edit directly, which is really nice. And then you also have some resources if you want to convert PDFs to HyperDocs. And so I believe we touched on that briefly yesterday too. And this can be one of those tools that allows you to take, this is more, you're totally retooling your worksheet. And so instead of it being a worksheet, now you're looking at it as a document that is now interactive, that the students maybe answer questions and maybe do things and maybe create. So it's more than just a worksheet at this point. So those are, so I'm going to give you, we've got about 10 minutes left. And so if you want to take a few minutes and play around with converting a PDF into an editable Google slide, you can do that. Otherwise, you can do back to quizzes, or you can just play around with Google Slides and see what you can do. So I'll give you about 10 minutes to do that so we can get some experience with that. I will be here for questions. So please ask questions. In our Google Drive, you can upload Word documents. And so I'm going to see what I have here for a good Word document. Of course, I have nothing good. Okay, Zoom settings. So I'm going to drag this document into my Google Drive. It is now complete, and I am also changing how my Google Drive is organized by last modified because it makes my life a lot saner. I like last modified because the most current stuff that I've done shows up at the top, or anybody's done. So the Zoom settings, I have mine, it's set to convert. And so when you click on your gear and you click on your settings, I have it automatically set to convert uploaded files to Google Docs editor format. I'm going to uncheck that box. I'm going to say done, and I'm going to upload that same file again. And where did you go? Okay, here it is down here. And so my Zoom settings doc shows up as a Word doc now. It did not convert to a Google Doc because I turned that setting off. So when you're here and you click on the gear and you click on settings, you can automatically convert your uploaded files, and then you don't end up with 2 files. What happens now is if I go and I edit this, this gives us the option. One of the new things in Google is you can edit a Word document in Google. And so if somebody sends over a Word document, I can edit it. And so I could edit a Word document as it is. I can also do a file, and I can save it as a Google Docs. So now what happens, and this is where it gets really, it messes up your Google Drive. It makes your, it just makes your Google Drive messy. It doesn't hurt your Google Drive. It just makes it messy. So I converted it to a Google Doc. So now when I go down here, I still have my Zoom settings in my Word file. And I also have now 2 Zoom settings in my Google Drive. So if you if you do not have that convert on, it will upload it as the original file. So PowerPoint, Word doc, Excel. And then when you open it, you get the option to edit it here. So you could edit it here if you wanted to, but if you save it as a Google Doc, then it will create another file. And so that's where you end up with all of the files and all of the weirdness in your Google Drive. So that's your settings, the gear in your Google Drive, your settings, and then it says convert uploads and convert uploaded files to Google Docs editor format. So I believe Lori pointed out earlier, and I will concur there, if you like slides, when you import slides from PowerPoint, you're going to want to go through and make sure that they are okay, because the formatting doesn't always translate well, and that's, I mean, that's just part of the transition. So Tim, yes, I will send you any add-ons if you want to. If you have any add-ons, Tim says to make sure you send them to him or to Gary or him so they can be added to their Google Suite. So, okay. All right. So any other last questions before we wrap it up? Okay, so I will stay on for a few minutes. So our session is over. We'll be back this afternoon at a different time. Tim, save me. What time did we say we're coming back? I think I said we're coming back at 1:30 your time. Yep, 1:30 this afternoon, we will be back. We're going to hang out with the Jamboard and Flipgrid this afternoon and check those out, so you'll get a little bit more time diving into those with some support. So come back at 1:30. For those of you that have questions, go ahead and stay on, and I will answer questions real quick before we wrap it up.